All right, so today you are going to learn an exciting new way to measure angles. Okay? You have always, throughout your whole career as a math student, measured angles using degrees, correct?
Yeah.
And how many degrees have you always been told that there are in a circle? 360. Okay? Now, if you think about it, it's sort of a random number. Like, why is there 360 degrees in the circle? Why didn't they say 100? Because that's a nice even one or something like that. And nobody really knows, but that's what they came up with, and so that's what people use. But there's a different way to measure the number of degrees in the circle, or the distance around a circle, I should say, that relates to the physical properties of the circle itself. And the way that that works is very simple. If you have a circle with a radius of 1, which we know from last week is called the unit circle, what is the circumference of that circle?
Pi r squared.
That would be the area, close.
That's what I meant.
That's what you meant. 2 pi r, but the radius is 1, so 2 pi r is,
3.14.
but just keep the pi in there.
2 pi.
2 pi.
There you go.
Because since the circumference is 2 pi r, but r equals 1, if I plug 1 into there for r, my circumference is just 2 pi. Okay? So what that means is the physical distance around this circle with a radius 1 is 2 pi inches or centimeters or meters or whatever you're measuring it in, right? And so what somebody else said is, well, forget about this 360 stuff, that doesn't make any sense. Let's say all the way around the circle is 2 pi radians. Okay? So what you need to get into your head right now, what you need to be thinking about, understanding, is this very important little simple piece of information right there. You have always had in your head all the way around the circle is 360 degrees. You need to also think or recognize that all the way around the circle is 2 pi radians. And so 360 degrees is the same as 2 pi radians. Okay? A lot of times you put RAD. Okay, there's an abbreviation if you want to be lazier than Stephen Green. Pretty.
But that's because r already means radius.
Because r could be confused with radius, which is why it's called radians, because it relates to the radius of the circle.
Yeah.
But anyway, so 360 degrees is equal to 2 pi radians, okay? Or more simply, pi radians equals
2.
180. Because all the way around is 360 or 2 pi. Halfway around is 180 or just pi. Okay, hello, Mary. I need you to stay with me. Okay, the important foundation of a whole bunch of stuff here. Okay, all right.
What's a radian?
Well, what is 1 radian?
I don't know what the radian is.
1 radian would be some angle right here that's, right? 1 radian is just going to be, I mean, that's like saying what's 1 degree. It's a measure of a
Okay,
angle.
so it's a
Okay? What's that?
What was 2 radians?
2 radians would be a measure of a bigger angle. It's like saying what's 2 degrees? It's just a measure of an angle. What's 1 foot? It's a measure of a distance. So all we're doing is just measuring things using different units, okay? Okay, so one thing that you're going to want to get handy at until you get a better sort of sense of how this goes is if I tell you negative 3 pi over 4 radians, it would be really hard for you right now, I'm guessing, since we're just learning this, for you to picture in your head what that angle measure looks like. Whereas if I say 75 degrees, you can picture a 75-degree angle, right?
Yeah.
Or if I say 45, you know what a 45-degree angle looks like. So to help you understand that, we're going to learn to translate between radians and degrees. And since pi radians equals 180 degrees, the way that you change radians into degrees is you multiply by 180 over pi. Okay? Because if I wanted to solve this right here for radians, I would divide both sides by pi, right? What's that? I cross cancel, so I can say that this pi right here cancels with that pi right there. I can also say that 4 goes into 180 how many times? 45. And then that means to change that into degrees, that would be negative 135 degrees. Okay, because I went negative 3 times 45. Okay? So if I give you an angle measure in radians and you have no idea what that is in degrees, an easy way to figure that out is to change it into degrees by multiplying by 180 over pi.
Are there standard ones?
Okay. There are some standard ones that you should get good at really quickly. That's a great question. So the easiest one, obviously, is that all the way around 360 degrees is 2 pi, right?
Right.
And then we already talked about if I go halfway around, that's
Pi.
pi. Okay? Well, what would this one be right here? If
Half
this-
pi.
Right, half a pi, which they write as pi over 2.
And pi and a
Okay?
half.
So this is 0, pi over 2, pi, and then yes, this one would be pi and a half, which they write as 3 pi over 2. And then this is 2 pi. So those 4 you should get pretty good at pretty quickly. Pi over 2 is 90. Pi is 180. 3 pi over 2 is 270. And 2 pi is 360.
Wait, so do that again.
Pi over 2 is 90 degrees. Right? Pi is 180 degrees. 3 pi over 2 is 270 degrees. And 2 pi, like we started to talk about at the very beginning, is 360 degrees. Okay? So those are 4 easy ones for you to do. Eventually you're going to get good at figuring out what 45 degrees, 30 degrees, and 60 degrees are as well. So we'll talk about that more later. Okay?
There's like a six hours.
Yeah.
We should go.
3 pi over 2, pi and a half.
This is not.
It's fun already.
Not.
Okay, so I kind of gave away the answer here. Pi over 2 radians would be how many degrees? 90, and if you couldn't remember that, you could multiply by 180 over pi. The pi's cancel. 180 divided by 2 is 90 degrees, okay? Somebody said earlier, what's 1 radian? Well, how would I change 1 radian into degrees? Multiply by pi over, no, multiply by 180 over pi.
And it's a
Always.
180.
Well, no, because this time the pi's don't cancel. So it's 180 over pi, which someone with the calculator tell me what 180 divided by pi is approximately.
Where's 57.29.
57.29.
So is 180 just the one you always go to? That's what you always practice on?
Yeah, yeah,
It's just not
yeah, okay.
No.
No, but somebody said, what's 1 radian? And so there you go, that's what 1
So
radian.
60 is really close to it.
Yeah, so 60 is pretty close to 1 radian. Yeah, well, like I said, we'll get to that in just a minute. Okay, what if, for some crazy reason, you wanted to go the other way? What if you were given a 27-degree angle and you were asked to change that into radians? What would you do then?
That's about pi over 180.
Nice, times it by the reciprocal of what we were doing before, pi over 180. And usually when you do this, Courtney, usually when you do this, You leave it as a fraction. You do not write this as a decimal if you can avoid it. So what goes into 27 and 180 evenly? 3. So 3 goes in there 9 times, 3 goes in there 60 times. What goes into 90 and 60 evenly? 3 again. 3 goes in there 3 times, 3 goes in there 20 times, and now we're done. So you would say, bless you, that 27 degrees is really 3 pi over 20 radians. Okay, so you usually leave that if you can as a, you know.
So then if we were to multiply that by 185,
Then what would we
then
get?
we just get 27.
We get 27. Okay. How about?
Wait, so we're defining radians, the 180 right on the bottom?
Yeah. So let's make a
So
little cheat sheet
reciprocal.
here because Kendra loves this. To convert radians to degrees, you multiply by 180 over pi. To convert degrees to radians, as Forrest figured out, you multiply by pi over 180.
Can
Okay?
we do like 18? I'd be famous.
So that's your little cheat sheet there. What?
Can we do another one, like 18 degrees?
Sure. What is it?
Hong Kongians are going to take, so we're going to just go 10 or
Pi over 10. Yep. Because 18 goes into 18
Okay.
once, 18 goes into 180 10 times. Okay? So does that make sense on the whole converting thing?
Yeah,
Okay.
so we're done.
No.
Wait.
Wait. Okay, so what we can do with this is we can now figure out what are the cosine and sine of radian measures also, instead of degree measures. And it's the exact same thing as what we did before with just one little extra added step.
The sine.
Right, I just need to convert, I need to figure out pi over 4 radians is how many degrees. So I multiply by
180 over pi.
180 over pi.
Pi's cancel out.
The pi's cancel over out. 4 goes into 180 45 times.
So it's 45 degrees and then you just...
Go too fast.
Not paying enough attention, not paying enough attention.
No, you're going too fast.
So this is really just saying what's the cosine and sine of 45 degrees. Okay? And so remember that's that thing where we draw our little 45-degree angle. You make a triangle always down to the x-axis. Okay? It's a 45, 45, 90. So this is root 2 over 2. And this is root 2 over 2. So the coordinates of that point, since we're in quadrant 1, are both positive. They're both root 2 over 2. Lane is smiling because he's got this. So easy. So the cosine is the x-coordinate of that point, which is root 2 over 2. And the sine is the y-coordinate of that point, which is root 2 over 2.
Just don't think this one keeps...
Okay. All right? So all you need to do there is just take the radian measure, convert it into degrees, and do the same thing. It's all, excuse me, it's always either going to be a 45, 45, 90 triangle, or it's going to be a 30, 60, 90 triangle. So no big deal. Okay?
Hey, how come you can't just put it in your calculator and use the cosine? Aldrich,
Yo.
how come you can't use like the cosine button on your calculator?
Because that will give you a decimal answer. It'll round it. It'll take the square root of 2, divide it by 2, and figure out what it is. But we want exact answers.
Friday night, I actually don't have that. 11:30 at night.
Because my mom's asking me all these questions, I'm like, I don't know till I go to school. I don't
That's a lot.
Isn't it at like 7:30?
Are you coming from it? Or is it like a half mile?
I don't work anymore. We don't know how it's.
you don't get